Emma Carter never imagined a single knock on her front door would change the quiet rhythm of her life. It was a cloudy afternoon in Seattle, the kind that made everything feel slow and soft when she heard the knock. She expected a delivery or a neighbor asking about a lost package, but when she opened the door, she found Michael Turner, her husband Daniel's best friend, standing there with a look she had never seen on him before. He looked tired, almost fragile, like someone carrying a weight he didn't know how to put down. Emma had known Michael for years. He was part of their lives the way family, friends often are present at birthdays, barbecues, and holidays. He was the one who helped put up their Christmas lights when Daniel sprained his back. He was the one who fixed their sink when they couldn't afford a plumber. He was steady, kind, and reliable, the kind of man everyone trusted without a second thought. But that day, the usual confidence he carried was gone, replaced by something quieter, something that made Emma's heart tighten. "Hey, Emma," he said, trying to smile but failing. "Can we talk?" She stepped aside instantly. "Of course. Come in." He walked inside slowly, holding a folded piece of paper between his fingers. He didn't sit, didn't take off his jacket, didn't even look around. He stood there as if searching for the right way to speak. Emma watched him carefully. "What's wrong?" He let out a long breath and finally handed her the paper. It was a listing for a house outside the city. She recognized it immediately. It was his mother's house. The same house he had grown up in. The same house he had told countless stories about. "I'm selling it," he said quietly. "I have to. I can't keep it anymore." Emma nodded, understanding the surface of what he was saying, but sensing there was much more underneath. "I need help," he continued. "I have to clean everything out. Go through her things. Decide what to donate, what to keep. And I can't do it alone." His voice cracked on the last word. He looked down quickly, like he didn't want her to see the emotion in his eyes. Emma felt something shift inside her. She had seen Michael sad before, of course she had. She and Daniel had both been there when his mother got sick, and again when she passed away earlier that year. But grief was a complicated thing. It didn't always show itself when others were watching. It waited, hiding quietly behind strong faces, and then appeared suddenly, long after the world had moved on. "Why me?" she asked softly. Not because she didn't want to help, but because she wanted to understand. He lifted his eyes slowly. "Because you're gentle. You look at things differently. You make places feel safe." He paused, swallowing hard. "And I trust you." Emma didn't expect the heaviness of those words. They settled somewhere deep, warm, and unsettling all at once. She nodded quietly, unable to ignore the sincerity in his voice. "When do you want to go?" she asked. "Now," he said almost instantly, as if he had been standing on the edge of something and only needed a small push to move forward. She grabbed her coat, her keys, and followed him to his truck. The drive was quiet, the kind of quiet that wasn't uncomfortable, but heavy. Like both of them were preparing for something they didn't fully understand. The house was about 30 minutes away, sitting on a small hill surrounded by tall pine trees. Emma had been there once or twice in the past. During holiday seasons, when Michael's mother insisted everyone come over because no one should spend Christmas Eve in a house that doesn't smell like cinnamon. The place had felt warm then, full of life and laughter. But now it felt different. Still, faded. When they walked inside, the air held a faint scent of old perfume and dust. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, lighting up the dust in the air like tiny floating crystals. The house looked frozen in time, sweater draped over a chair, a book half open on the coffee table, framed photographs lining the fireplace. Michael stood in the living room and didn't say a word. Emma stepped closer, speaking softly. "You don't have to rush anything." He nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, I know." He walked over to a shelf and picked up a picture of himself as a little boy. His mother stood beside him, smiling the way mothers do when they believe their children can do anything. Michael stared at the picture for a long moment. When he finally set it down, his hands trembled. "This house, everything in it. It's all her," he said. "Every room feels like she's still here." Emma's heart ached. She had lost her father when she was young. She knew the kind of pain that stayed behind. the kind that didn't go away even when the world expected you to move on. "Let's go room by room," she said gently. "One step at a time. I'm here." They started in the kitchen. Emma opened drawers carefully, sorting things into piles. Michael sat at the table, flipping through old recipe cards written in his mother's handwriting. Every once in a while, he would read one aloud, laughing softly at the memories that came with it. Emma listened, encouraging him when he needed to share something, staying quiet when he needed silence. At one point, he found a small tin box filled with old notes and photographs. He handed it to Emma, asking her to look through it while he took a break. She sat on the floor beside the table and opened the box. Inside were small pieces of the past birthday cards, concert tickets, little drawings he had made as a child. There was so much love in that box, so much life, so many moments that had once meant everything. When she looked up, she saw Michael watching her with a softness she hadn't seen from him before. "You handle things so gently," he said. "I don't know how you do it." She smiled faintly. "Some things deserve gentleness." His expression changed, warmed, softened. For a moment, the air between them felt charged with something unspoken, something emotional. Not romantic, but deeply human. They moved to the living room next. Emma dusted shelves while Michael sorted through albums. He talked more now about his childhood, about his mother's stubbornness, about the way she used to make him wear matching sweaters every Christmas. Emma laughed at the stories, sometimes wiping away tears when a memory touched her too deeply. Time passed quickly. The sun began to dip behind the trees, turning the windows orange and gold dot. When they reached his mother's bedroom, something shifted again. This room felt heavier, more personal. The bed was still neatly made, her favorite scarf hanging on the side of the closet. Michael stepped inside slowly, almost reverently. Emma followed him, but she stayed near the doorway, giving him space after a long moment. He sank onto the edge of the bed. "I thought I was ready," he whispered. "But I'm not." Emma crossed the room and sat beside him. He didn't look at her, but she could feel the weight of his grief like a physical presence in the air. "You don't have to be ready," she said softly. "You just have to let yourself feel it." His shoulders trembled slightly. Emma placed a gentle hand on his arm, offering comfort without stepping over any line. She wasn't trying to fill the silence or fix his pain, just to sit with him through it. He finally lifted his eyes to hers, and for one strange, fleeting moment, it felt like the rest of the world disappeared. Not in a romantic way, but in a deeply emotional one. Two people sharing a moment of understanding they didn't know they needed. But the moment passed quickly. Michael exhaled, steadying himself. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I don't think I could do this with anyone else." They spent another hour packing small items into boxes, speaking only when they needed to. When the sun finally set, they walked out to the truck. Both of them exhausted, but calmer. Emma climbed into her seat. Looking back at the house one last time, "Today was a big step," she said. "You did more than you think." Michael nodded slowly. "Only because you were there." The drive back was quiet again, but the silence felt different now, comforting instead of heavy. When they reached her home, he parked in front of the driveway and turned to her. "Emma, really, thank you." She smiled gently, opening the door. "We'll finish the rest soon." He nodded, watching her for a moment longer before she stepped out. As she walked to her front door, she felt a strange mix of emotions: warmth, sadness, and something she couldn't quite name. She didn't know it yet. But that day was only the beginning. The favor she agreed to was going to change far more than a single house. It was going to change her heart. Emma returned to Michael's mother's house the next day, determined to continue helping him sort through the memories he could no longer face alone. The morning air was crisp, carrying a quiet energy that made the drive feel urgent. She parked her car and saw Michael already outside, shifting boxes from the porch to the truck. His usual composure seemed gone, replaced by a restless energy. He greeted her with a small smile, but Emma could tell he was tense. Carrying a mix of grief and relief, they went inside together, and the house felt both familiar and strange. The quiet echoed through the empty rooms. It wasn't just the absence of his mother that made the space feel heavier. It was the weight of years of memories folded into furniture and photographs. Michael led Emma through the hallway, pointing out boxes of old clothes, toys, and trinkets. His hands shook slightly as he picked up objects that were once part of his everyday life. And Emma noticed his jaw tighten as he forced himself to let go of them. She didn't rush him. She knew grief had its own pace. Some things are harder to sort than others. She said softly, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. He didn't pull away, and she felt a strange sense of closeness that went beyond words. It wasn't romantic, at least not in the traditional sense, but it was intimate, in a way that only comes from shared vulnerability. Michael nodded, exhaling slowly. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how attached I was until now. They moved through the rooms quickly but carefully, working as a team. Emma unpacked boxes, laid out items, and sorted them into keep, donate, or discard piles. Michael followed her lead, occasionally telling stories about objects that held special meaning. He laughed when he remembered small mischief from his childhood. And Emma laughed with him, grateful for the glimpses of light amidst the heaviness. There were moments when he would stop mid, lost in thought, and Emma would sit beside him quietly, letting him process memories out loud without judgment. It wasn't just the physical labor that mattered, was the emotional support. Michael had always been the strong one, the friend everyone turned to, the one who carried others' burdens without complaint. Emma had known him in that way for years. But now she saw another side, the vulnerable, raw, human side that he rarely showed. Watching him navigate grief with both strength and fragility made her heart ache. She realized that helping him wasn't just about packing boxes. It was about giving him permission to feel, permission to lean on someone without fear of judgment. One afternoon, they came across a box of letters tucked away in a closet. Michael picked it up and opened it, his hands trembling slightly. The letters were from his mother, handwritten notes spanning years, filled with advice, love, and small reminders of life lessons she had taught him. Michael read them aloud to Emma, his voice breaking at times. "I can't believe I'm only reading these now," he whispered, a single tear rolling down his cheek. Emma sat close, offering silent comfort, her presence steady and calm. She could feel the depth of his pain, the weight of loss that lingered even months after his mother had passed. "You're not alone, Michael," she said softly. "You don't have to do this by yourself." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a moment words failed him. There was gratitude in his eyes, a quiet appreciation that felt almost sacred. Emma realized in that instant how much her presence mattered, not because she had to, but because she chose to be there. They worked for hours after that, unpacking memories, sorting keepsakes, and sharing stories. As evening approached, the room was filled with boxes labeled and ready to go. And the air felt lighter, though still tinged with sadness. Michael paused, standing in the center of the room. "I don't know how I would have done this without you," he admitted. "I never expected." His voice caught again, revealing the vulnerability he usually hid. Emma stepped closer, feeling a warmth that surprised her. She placed a hand on his arm, gently, reassuringly. He didn't flinch. "Sometimes the hardest part is accepting help," she said quietly. "It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." That night, as they loaded the last boxes into the truck, Michael's gratitude was palpable. He walked her to her car, the sun low behind the trees, casting long shadows across the driveway. "Emma," he said softly, "thank you for everything. I mean it." She smiled, a mixture of relief and emotion in her expression. "You're stronger than you think, Michael. I just helped you see it." The drive home was quiet, but the silence felt different from before. It was no longer heavy or tense. It was reflective, contemplative. Emma thought about the week, about the moments they had shared, and about the unspoken connection that had grown between them. It wasn't romantic in a conventional sense, but it was deep emotional. An intimate bond forged through vulnerability and trust. The following days were quieter, almost ordinary, But every interaction carried an undercurrent of emotion. Michael began calling her more often, not just about the house, but to talk, to share thoughts and stories. Emma found herself looking forward to the calls, to the conversations that allowed her to glimpse the heart of the man behind the strong, dependable exterior. They spoke about small things at first: work, the weather, mutual friends, but gradually, the talks became more personal, more revealing. One evening, Michael called as Emma was preparing dinner. He sounded hesitant, almost unsure. "Can we meet at the house tomorrow? I think. There's one more room I can't face alone." Emma agreed immediately, sensing both urgency and fragility in his tone. The next morning, she arrived to find him pacing, glancing at the locked study door. "It's everything from my dad," he admitted quietly. "I've been avoiding it. Too many memories." Together, they entered the study. The room smelled of old paper and cedar. Dust covered the shelves, and stacks of books formed small towers in corners. Michael walked to the desk, his fingers brushing over the surface, tracing the edges of old papers. He sank into the chair, overwhelmed by the flood of memories. Emma sat beside him, offering silent support. They spent the day going through the study, sorting papers, photographs, and mementos. Michael laughed softly at old notes his father had left, paused to read letters he had forgotten existed, and occasionally sighed deeply, letting the weight of the past settle on him. Emma moved around the room, organizing, listening, comforting. The work was exhausting but necessary, and by evening the study felt lighter, not empty, but prepared for the next chapter. When they stepped outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in warm hues. Michael leaned against the porch railing, taking a deep breath. "I feel different," he admitted. "Like a weight has been lifted." Emma nodded, feeling the same sense of relief. "You've done the hard work," she said. "It's okay to feel lighter now." For a moment, they simply stood there, side by side, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The silence was comforting, a shared moment of quiet triumph and understanding. It was in that moment Emma realized how much their bond had grown, not through words or actions, but through empathy, trust, and the courage to face pain together. Over the next few days, the house was finally ready to be sold. Boxes were packed, rooms cleaned, memories preserved in small keepsakes. Michael's relief was tangible, but Emma noticed a quiet hesitation in his eyes. It wasn't sadness, it was reflection. It's the kind that comes after an emotional journey. On their last day at the house, Michael turned to Emma. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said softly. "You? You made it easier to face all of this. I don't just mean the house. I mean me." Emma smiled gently, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I'm glad I could help," she said. "You didn't have to do it alone." They packed the final box into the truck and stood together on the porch, looking at the house one last time. The walls that had held so many memories were now empty. But the memories themselves were safe, preserved in their hearts. Michael walked Emma to her car. He paused at the door, his hand resting lightly on the frame. "Thank you again," he said, "for everything. For being there, for listening, for understanding." Emma nodded, feeling the full weight of the week's events. "We all need someone to lean on sometimes," she said softly. They said their goodbyes, but neither of them could ignore the quiet connection that had formed. It wasn't romantic in the conventional sense, but it was powerfully emotional, deep, and lasting. It was a bond born of trust, vulnerability, and shared grief, something that would remain with them unspoken, cherished, and profoundly human. As Emma drove home, she reflected on the week. She hadn't expected to feel so much, to be so affected by someone else's pain. But she also realized that the experience had changed her. She had been reminded of the strength of human connection, of the quiet power of empathy, and of the ways in which hearts could touch without overstepping boundaries. Michael, too, felt the lingering warmth of their time together. He had faced grief, sorted through the past, and found someone who had not judged him, who had not rushed him, who had simply been there. And that, he knew, was rare. The house was sold, life moved forward, and yet the memory of that week remained. not as a secret or a regret, but as a reminder of what it meant to trust, to feel, and to connect deeply with another person. Sometimes, Emma thought, the most powerful stories are the ones that never cross a line but still leave a lasting mark on the heart.